Good afternoon and welcome to today's FYN virtual learning series session on communicating who you are, social media profile writing. So we have some really interesting panelists with us today. But I will start by saying that for the most part, today's session is going to be in English and our panelists will respond in English. I'll provide some French summaries as we go through the session today. And feel free to pose questions in the language of your choice using the Q&A function. Je vais commencer par dire que je vous joins du territoire Algonquin-Anishinaabe. So I'm joining you from Algonquin-Anishinaabe territory. And the Algonquin peoples have lived on this land since time immemorial. And we're grateful to have the opportunity to be present in this territory. So as I mentioned, as we move through today's session, please share your comments in the chat space. And please share your questions exclusively using the Q&A function. You'll see in the Q&A function, there's also an option to upvote the questions that you want to hear responses from our panelists. Alors, au fur et à mesure que nous progressons dans la session d'aujourd'hui, veuillez partager vos questions en utilisant le bouton questions et réponses Q&A dans la langue de votre choix. Et vous pouvez voter pour les questions que vous voulez poser en cliquant sur le bouton thumbs up. Je m'excuse, mais le bouton thumbs up n'est pas bilingue. Aujourd'hui, nous accueillons trois panélistes très intéressants. Et puis, on va commencer avec les introductions. Alors, on va commencer avec Jen Boddington. Jen, à vous.
Hi there, my name is Jen Boddington. I'm really excited to be here today. Some of my background, I started as a public servant about almost 14 years ago as a student. And my background consists of basically sociology and management. I went back to school a few years ago to get a post-degree diploma in public relations and strategic communications, and worked in the communications field within the public service for a number of years. Just recently, I moved over to the program side. So I'm a senior program officer with Indigenous Services Canada, the First Nations Inuit Health Branch, within non-insured health benefits.
Awesome. And thank you very much for joining us here today. Next, we'll go to Mamie Dahir. So Mamie, over to you for introductions. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Good afternoon, everyone, and good morning, wherever you're tuning in from. My name is Mama Dahir, and I currently serve as a policy analyst with the Mental Health for Black Canadians initiative at the Public Health Agency of Canada. And ideally, what we do is we're committed to improving and supporting the diverse determinants of health, especially when it comes to multiple Black communities here in Canada. I am extremely elated to be here. Besides me being a policy analyst, I also have my own not-for-profit organization called the Power of Love Foundation Canada, where we are devoted to providing services and resources to Black Canadians. So I am just elated to be here and just here to both learn from my fellow panelists and also learn from our attendees as well. So thank you once again, Joshua, for the opportunity.
Oh, thanks very much for joining us. And finally, we have Alex Saka. So Alex, if you want to give your introduction. Merci beaucoup.
Thanks, Josh. Hi, I am thrilled to be here and echo Mami that I'm thrilled to be with these panelists and here with all of you. So thank you for having me. I am one of Canada's free agents, and I'm super excited about topics related to the future of work, in particular, moving towards a more human-centric view of working through skills, saying that we're more than our job descriptions. What are our skills, our learning interests, and our passions?
Awesome. Thanks very much. So we'll get started with some planned questions that we have. And then after that, we'll go to an open Q&A. And so we'll see how the session progresses in terms of questions that you have and make sure that we're engaging you as an audience and responding as you bring up questions as well. Alors, on va commencer avec le questions et réponses qui a été préparé en avance. Et puis, après ça, on va changer les questions et réponses que vous voulez entendre en utilisant la fonction Q&A. Okay, so to start off, we'll start off with Jen. So how does creating a strong social media profile help one drive their career? So like, why should they care about creating a social media profile?
Well, I mean, I think we've all seen those videos where somebody asks their friend to find some information out about a person and they like furiously go online and do some super sleuthing. And we all kind of laugh, but I really believe that there's some truth to that. And so people Google you. It's the second that your resume lands on somebody's desk, they'll probably Google you. So that means your HR office, your boss, your colleagues, and your clients. If they don't Google you beforehand, they might do so afterward. So I think it's really important to view your social media profiles as your online resume. And your posts act as your references. And so when somebody does look you up, they can get a pretty good idea of whether or not, they'll get an idea of who you are, but they'll also get an idea of whether your resume kind of matches with the experience that you mentioned, especially if you put social media experience as one of your experience factors. Also, I believe that depending on your career path, it can kind of raise red flags if you have absolutely no online presence. But, you know, and that's kind of sad, but you know, whether it's the truth or not, people might believe that you're hiding something. So even if you don't go crazy and put everything on social media, I think it's still really important to have some information on social media.
Absolutely. And I'll say that for our organization, I staffed a person almost within about a day based on, you know, them contacting me and then, you know, a quick search of their name and some of the stuff that they'd worked on. And it was clear that they were a good fit for the role. So you're kind of taking yourself out of that if you don't have much of a presence or the presence is outdated on social media. Mamie, can we hear from you in terms of this question? So how does creating a strong social media profile help you drive your career?
I strongly believe that creating a social media profile really positively impacts your career. Like Jen has said, most recruiters tend to look at your social media page either before or after you are hired. But one of the most important things I would say really sort of supports your career is when it comes to the SEO. And SEO tends to be a very big tech name, which ideally its full meaning is search engine optimization. And what that happens is that, for example, if you create your page on either LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, or whatever blog you have, anytime someone searches for your name in a search engine, for example, Google, most of these information about you will pull up. So for example, if I'm a recruiter and I want to hire you for a job in the government, what I do is if I go on Google and I just type, let's say, Mohammed here, what happens is your LinkedIn page will be one of the first things that will pop up, or other articles and blogs that have been written about you. What ideally it does is it gives people an information about who you are. Even besides your career as well, I strongly believe that most of us have desires of either venturing into other aspects, even within our career field. For example, I myself, I have a keen interest in even joining the National Council when it comes to the Federal Youth Network. So even having that solid background, especially resting on the internet, it really helps you to create that online profile, and it gives people an idea of what you are, what you're made of, and how, even besides you as a professional, what are the other things that, or extracurricular activities that contributes to making you a professional. So I strongly believe that creating a social media profile, a strong one as a matter of fact, really positively impacts your career in several ways.
Absolutely. Alex, over to you.
Yeah, and I always laugh because when I started my career, we didn't have social media. And so the first impression was always, you know, it was always stress. When you go into the interview, someone is going to judge you right away and they're going to make their impression and, you know, on what you're saying in that interview. Well, it's not the case anymore. They're making that impression on your social media profile and presence. And it goes both ways. Like when you are looking for a job, you're also looking at the people that work at the organization and what is in their profiles. So it goes both ways, but it's replaced the new first impression.
Absolutely. Alors, je pense que nos trois panélistes nous ont donné beaucoup de différents conseils par rapport à cette question. Mais pour la plupart, les commentaires, c'était que les médias sociaux, c'est l'opportunité d'avoir cette première impression. Alors, si les recruteurs, si les personnes des ressources humaines vous cherchent, c'est l'opportunité de voir l'information qui peut être assez petit ou assez grand comme répertoire d'informations sur vous, mais s'ils voient ton profil LinkedIn ou Twitter ou quoi que ce soit, ça vous aide pour avoir cette information dans le domaine public parce qu'ils vont faire ces recherches. Okay, next question. So, Mami, what are some key elements in writing a social media profile?
So for me, I see it as that I love creating all these like acronyms for stuff. So I call it the ABC. So A for authenticity. It's very important that when you're creating your social media profile, that you're being authentic, you're being genuine. Believe it or not, people can read in between the lines. They know if you're writing something that is not true. They know whether you've truly not worked in Google for 10 years. So it's important to be very authentic in the things you post, whether it be your bio, in your name, in your about section on LinkedIn, and even the posts you create. It's very important to be authentic. The B is balance. Because normally when you come to social media profiles, especially like LinkedIn, because I love LinkedIn, it's a page where people only assume that it's used for job search or networking. However, people forget that there is a human behind the page. What people love about LinkedIn is your ability to still be human, to still show your humanity aspect and still be professional at the same time. So it's expedient to have that balance and tell people that, hey, although I work as a policy analyst in the government, or although I work in the federal government aspect, I also have a life. I can also have fun. I'm also a personal person. And then lastly is the C. It's important that anytime you're creating your social media profile, you have clarity. You are clear about what your niche is. Are you someone who likes to talk about policies, or you like to talk about programs, or you like to talk about career searches, or maybe you just like to talk about dogs? So being clear about what your social media profile stands for is very important. I'll lastly end with for me, when you come on my LinkedIn page, I believe LinkedIn did a recent update where you can choose 5 keywords of what you like to talk about. So my keywords were job search, career strategies, social media, policies, as well as just entertainment. So these are the key things you will see when you log into my LinkedIn page. And those are the things that I tend to follow, especially when it comes to posts and comes to the things that I want to be known for when you come on my LinkedIn page. So it's very important that you follow the ABCs, which is authenticity, balance, and clarity when creating your social media profile.
Absolutely, I love that. Alors, en français, l'authenticité, la balance et puis le clarité, c'est important pour les médias sociaux et je pense que c'est vraiment pertinent pour LinkedIn que tu as assez pensé par rapport à votre utilisation des médias sociaux. And I think it's interesting to see with LinkedIn that I think for the most part, like no matter what level people are at, very few people have other people administering their LinkedIn pages. So you might see, senior leaders who have kind of an official kind of Twitter account where they're pushing out messaging through their department or whatever the case may be. But with LinkedIn, for the most part, you're as you mentioned, there's a person behind that profile. And good and bad elements of that as well. So, don't start cold calling deputy ministers who are on your LinkedIn, but know that, for the most part, people are behind those profiles and are sharing what they want to share. Alex, the next question is over to you. So what are the key differences in how I tailor my profile to different platforms? So LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, for those of us who are on TikTok.
Sure. Well, this is from my experience, and in my experience professionally, I tend to focus on Twitter and LinkedIn. I have a private Facebook and Insta account that I rarely use or consume, but those are private. And I do have a TikTok account. I love TikTok, but I'm a consumer and not a content creator. But why the distinction? So when I was considering presenting myself and where I'd like to focus, I focused on, what outcome do I want as well? And I wanted to see who I want, what community I wanted to engage with. And professionally for me, most of the people that I would engage with are on Twitter and LinkedIn. So that's one of the first things I would do is research the kind of place that you wanted to work. the people that are working there and what their profiles say for inspiration. And it's okay to kind of crib some things, some skills as you're getting to know your own skills, or even like the jargon or sayings that, you know, if you wanted to make it your own, it's okay to be similar to someone else, especially at first when I would start really small and go for a well-written, catchy phrase. And second, I would also, as I think Jen mentioned, you would ego surf. Google yourself to see what a prospective manager or colleague would see when they punch your name in, because that's inevitable. And so the two that I focus on, Twitter and LinkedIn, I don't hesitate to change or update or revisit graphics or quotes. And the bottom line is you have to take an honest look at yourself, and you have to figure out what your superpowers are and what skills you want to develop and learn, and then find the people that will support that learning and development. And people want to hire those people who are passionate about things. And, you know, usually that would come first for me. Hiring someone, I would want someone that was passionate about this work, and then that want to develop their skills.
Absolument. Je pense que c'est très clé, cela, d'utiliser LinkedIn comme une plateforme peut-être de réseautage, peut-être de trouver les personnes qui travaillent dans la même organisation que vous avez une entrevue ou vous avez une opportunité peut-être dans le futur, de voir quelle sorte de travail ils font, quelles sont les valeurs de cette organisation ou des personnes dans l'organisation. Alors, je pense qu'il y a beaucoup de méthodes d'utiliser ces plateformes, et puis je pense que Alex a nous donné des idées pour utiliser ces plateformes de votre avantage. So thanks very much, Alex. Jen, the next question is over to you. So how do I create two-way communication on social media platforms?
So basically, I guess, I mean, the online world can seem like a little bit of a lonely world, but it isn't, right? There's opportunities to engage with people, local people across the country, people all over the world. And so what I would recommend is that you initially follow people and brands that resonate with your personal philosophy or that you admire. And so to determine your personal philosophy, you'll probably have to do a little bit of soul searching if you haven't already. And there are a lot of really great online tools that will, you know, ask you certain questions that'll kind of lead you to that. Basically, you want to follow people or accounts that, you know, that you share common core values, or you know, different ideas, or, you know, there's somebody that you kind of want to aspire to be, or you kind of admire them. And when you follow those people, start engaging with their posts and their followers. This will allow people to get to kind of know you, you know, from the background. You don't have to get too involved just yet or at the beginning, and that which can feel really kind of overwhelming. Then if you're looking for some great Government of Canada accounts to engage with, I recommend Leaders GC, the National Managers Community, and of course the Federal Youth Network on Twitter. All have really active followings, and, you know, have different events that you can engage with. And they're all public servants. Everybody's kind of, you know, you have to start somewhere, and it's a really great place to, you know, start engaging with people. One of the things to remember is that always follow the golden rule. Treat people the way you want to be treated. It's fine to, you know, you do definitely want to be authentic online, and you want to share your own ideas and opinions. Just because somebody has a different opinion of you doesn't make it wrong. Same goes with you. You're not necessarily wrong either. I think there's a really great opportunity to be very respectful and open, and to learn something new if you're open to it. Your posts, when you do eventually post, it's really important to have a call to action. So if you're creating content, make sure people can comment, you know, it's something people can comment on. And that doesn't have to be anything really big. You don't have to post a really big video of yourself. It could just be a life event, networking event, you know, your animals, people you love, things you love, just something for people to engage in, because we all have common interests. And it's, just really important, I think, to, again, as Mama had said, showcase your authentic self, and people will resonate with that and communicate with you. Now, it's also important to share media that can be watched or clicked or shared. Basically give people an opportunity to do something when they see your post, and that'll definitely increase your engagement and open up communication. And lastly, it's really important to have fun. If social media posting feels kind of like a chore, I think it's really important that you stop and ask yourself how you can create more meaningful connections as opposed to just the number of connections. Those things will grow, like your engagement and stuff will grow organically over time. You don't have to force it and go, all out all at once. It's really hard to maintain a lot of like surface level relationships. You're better off just focusing on a few brands or people that you engage with really deeply, and that will help you grow your engagement.
Absolutely. Alors, Jen a parlé de déterminer votre philosophie personnelle, de trouver les comptes et les personnes qui sont peut-être pas la même, mais ont les valeurs et les philosophies qui sont peut-être similaires à les vôtres. De trouver les personnes que vous pouvez engager avec leur contenu, leurs followers sur Twitter et puis sur LinkedIn et les autres médias sociaux. Et puis de quelques comptes dans le GC qui sont importants, comme le réseau des jeunes fonctionnaires fédéraux, la communauté nationale des gestionnaires, Leaders GC, et il y a d'autres comme One Team Gov qui a commencé il y a quelques ans. Et puis de traiter les personnes comme vous le voulez être traitées, de ne pas être de ne pas avoir de harcèlement ou de trouver le méthode d'engager vos followers. Merci beaucoup, Jen. Okay, next question. Over to Mamie. So, what are some key mistakes to avoid when I'm creating my social media profiles?
I strongly believe that some of the key mistakes to avoid is, and I will just summarize it in one sentence, is it's not just social media. Because I feel like a lot of people have this statement behind your mind of, oh, it's just social media. The way I am in person is not how I am on social media. Well, guess what? What you put on social media is what people are going to perceive that is who you are. So it's expedient that whatever you post on social media, you have at the back of your mind is that is how people read you, that is how people perceive you, and that's how they see you. It's important that I believe another mistake you should avoid is, for me, and I'll give a perfect example. Truthfully, if I post anything on social media that I feel that to an extent aligns with the work I do, I first seek permission from my manager. And that was when I even first started working in the government space. I asked my supervisor, I said, what are some of the things that I should consider or be aware of when I'm posting on social media? And one of the key information that I was giving was, if it's public knowledge, that's fine. But if it's not public knowledge, stay away from it, especially when it comes to things you're posting on social media related to your work. So anything related to federal government, if it's something open in public knowledge on Google that anyone can find, that's absolutely fine. But if it's something within the caucus of your own team, it's important to not put that out because of confidentiality reasons. So that's one mistake people should avoid, because ideally you can get in a lot of trouble if you post private things that are supposed to be meant for only your team, to make that public as well. And I would say lastly, some of the other mistakes you should avoid is, and I think it goes back to what I said, is trying to be someone that you're not. Trust me, it goes around and it'll come and bite you, because what happens is when you begin to put out the image of this individual, you always have to keep up with it. If you put out the image of being a flashy person, guess what? Every time you post on social media, it's either you cannot post the same dress you posted, or you would have to post something else to try to match it. So bottom line, being authentic and not trying to be this genuine person could be one of the mistakes that I would advise that people can avoid. So.
Absolutely. I think that authenticity piece is incredibly key. And I think it's fairly easy for people to figure out if you're not being authentic. If if you're a leader and you're posting about engaging your team and managing their mental health, and your team is like, well, this person has like 4 harassment complaints and is in anger management therapy or something, like it's fairly clear to people whether or not you're being authentic, and whether that, as you say, that profile matches your in-person tendencies as well. Alors, je pense que vous avez partagé beaucoup d'informations importantes sur cela, et l'authenticité, c'est le clé. Et essayez de ne pas essayer, mais ne partagez pas l'information qui n'est pas dans le domaine public. C'est très clé aussi. Qu'est-ce que tu travailles dessus dans votre rôle, dans votre département? Ce n'est pas l'information qui est publique, et tu dois être partisan de ne pas partager l'information qui est privée dans votre département. Merci beaucoup. Alex, next question over to you. So I want to be myself on social media, but how much is too much in terms of the information that I share?
So yeah, that is an important and difficult balance, because when you are in the public service, there are videos and courses, mandatory training, or there's something from your ADM or VP or manager or director. They talk to you about social media and they may say, use your common sense. And so they're kind of saying, use my common sense, because they have no idea what my common sense is unless they've drawn from the same experiences that I have. So it's very different for people, different age groups, say mid or end career, to that of like a digital native starting their career. The common sense is different. So I think, to what Mimi was saying, the balance of being authentic, but not oversharing, and humble but confident, knowledgeable but not condescending. I think the most important thing that you can do is put yourself down and then ask for someone's opinion. So maybe not necessarily a person that thinks like you, or is in, your homogenous type cohort, but, triangulate. Everybody here probably knows how to think critically. So that's what you have to do with your social media profile as well. It's always good practice. Because there's sometimes when I might try to write something and think it's hilarious and so funny, and then it's crickets. And then an hour later, I'm like, how did I think that was even funny? So it's important to review and be thoughtful and to think critically. And so a couple things here is I spent a lot of time in my career trying to project a persona. And to what Mamie said, it was exhausting. I wanted to be what I thought was acceptable, and I didn't really know myself or my skills. So I knew what others expected of me, and I knew how others defined success. And so that's what I went for. And I have this on my Twitter profile, and I haven't changed it because it had a profound effect on me. I had a director say to me, you should hold your cards closer. And I find that exhausting. There's just too many rules when you hold your cards closer. Like, I know, not sharing too much personally, but professionally, just being authentic, trying to figure out that balance. And figuring out where you want to work, because if someone said something like that to me today, I would take that sign of as a kind of a toxic work environment. So all that to say, to be authentic and vulnerable, especially right now in our current work environment. Like, it's okay to say that you're not doing okay. Like, we've seen a lot on Twitter and LinkedIn, like, and you can feel those different things in one day. You can feel really crappy, and you can cry, and you can feel really great about a project. And so there's a lot of feelings going around, and I would say engaging in conversations and trying to belong to a community, and to be a little bit vulnerable, and to be authentic, but also be concise. So if you're unsure, I would just, again, start really small. And then when you're confident in your skills, or you hear something that really inspires you, then you can change a little bit and stick out a little more. And I'm not saying to conform to a mold. So just if you're wondering where to start small, and to make your personal media private, and ask yourself, am I projecting this because I need an ego boost or a validation? Or is it because it's useful and I want to share this, and I want to, keep my professional media public? That would be my recommendation. And of course, you could only be the judge of that, but just to be aware that others are looking and asking, is this a person I want to work with?
Absolutely. I think that what you said at first is very key. So everyone has sort of a different level of common sense. To share a very short story, I had a colleague who sort of overshared a little bit on Facebook, and one of the things they overshared with the next team that they moved to was, this place is ridiculous, and everything's disorganized, and I'm not really liking this team, but had a bunch of people from their team on their Facebook. So then the question from all of their team was like, well, like, what did I do to you, essentially? So like, be clear on like who your audience is, what your purpose is of sharing that information.
And can I just, Josh, that's a really good point, because we're all going to make mistakes like that. And we're all going to be frustrated or, say something that we might regret later. So first, that goes to the review, and be thoughtful and think critically. But if you do it, be accountable for it. It's okay. We're all human. It's okay to say to that group, you know what? I was really upset and frustrated, and there was a lot going on here and there, and that's why I wrote that. So it's good to kind of be accountable for that too.
Yes, absolutely. Alors, je pense que tu as mentionné beaucoup de points importants. Un, c'est encore l'authenticité, d'être vulnérable, d'avoir des pensées que vous êtes une personne complète et non parfaite. So you're not a perfect person, you're a complete person. Et puis, d'utiliser les pensées critiques comme d'avoir les opinions des autres pour vos posts. Alors, si tu as des questions, peut-être tu as l'opportunité de parler avec une autre personne de cette post avant que tu le mettes sur Twitter ou sur LinkedIn ou quoi que ce soit. So thanks very much, Alex. Jen, the next question is for you, and then we'll go to the Q&A, which is populating very quickly from our participants. But as a follow-up, so how do we mix our personal passions into our government brand? So how does, Josh go to GC Josh?
There we go. I had to unmute. So, it's really important to remember, if you're almost exclusively using a platform as an extension of your work or for networking opportunities, and it's, including details about your employer is really actually kind of beneficial. It provides opportunities for engagement and strategic connections. Everybody needs a friend in a different department, because you never know when you'll have a project or something else that kind of comes up. So it's really important to know that, or to know somebody else. But regardless, if you do choose to publicly include your employer in your profile, when someone does Google you, they'll be able to see your information on GOC 411. So it's really important that, whether it's your personal life or it's a personal account or it's a non-personal account, that all of your social media posts kind of align with the public service values and ethics. The internet's forever. And so, as Alex had mentioned, it's really important to Google yourself and make sure that things that are popping up are things that you want to reflect you. Basically, I'd recommend that you don't really post anything incriminating on social media. Your social media posts can be used against you, unfortunately, as you had mentioned, Josh, as well, in the social arena and legally. So ways you can show your personality through are photos, your posts, the content you share, share your family, your friends, your pets, photography, travel, volunteer work, causes that are important to you. Basically, your hobbies, like anything that makes you you. I think the most important thing to remember is that your role within government is only one of the facets of you. And so if you wanted a person to get to know you, but they could only go online to do so, what would you want them to learn? You want them to see the things you're passionate about and the things you love. Those are the things you really want to share. And again, you don't have to share absolutely everything, as Alex had mentioned. Like, privacy settings really are your friends. And so there's an opportunity to find that really nice balance with a few close people that you really trust, that, you might be a little more open with them than with everybody else. And it's not that you're being, not that you're trying to hide anything. It's just that certain things are probably more appropriate for certain audiences. And the way I see it is, if you do want to share it online, but you want to share it with your friends, but basically anything that you wouldn't want shared at a meeting or like a family dinner table, then maybe, include privacy settings so that it's only included to a few people. But showcasing who you are and what you love, I think, is a really good way to complement your GC brand.
Absolutely, and I think that it is nice to know a little bit about people, especially in this context where oftentimes we're meeting people virtually for years or months. Well, maybe I won't go with years because I guess we're all hopeful that this ends eventually, but certainly for months before we meet them in person, and it's nice to get to know a little bit about them beyond, they work in this area and they work in this section. But to understand, some of the other things that they're passionate about. Alors, je pense que on a l'opportunité de partager les détails personnels, mais peut-être les intérêts. Peut-être c'est de faire les voyages, peut-être c'est des autres passions que vous voulez partager sur les médias sociaux. Et c'est une opportunité de partager un peu d'informations, mais vous pouvez partager l'information que vous voulez et non l'information que vous ne voulez pas partager, ou utiliser les réseaux sociaux différents pour partager ce type d'information. So thanks very much. Okay, so we'll go to our Q&A now, which is populating very quickly. So I see the newest top question, which is, what are some of the best ways to put your side gigs or projects on social media profiles while working in the government? Alors, la question, c'est par rapport les projets sur le côté de votre bureau. Comment est-ce qu'on peut partager l'information sur ces types de projets sur les médias sociaux quand tu travailles dans le gouvernement? Who would like to start with this question?
I could go if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, so personally, for me, I do multiple side gigs, truthfully. And one of the key things that has really helped me is, believe it or not, actually being open with my coworkers that, hey guys, I have a not-for-profit organization and this is what we do. And what happens is anytime let's say, for example, they see it on LinkedIn, they're not shocked because they know, okay, this is something that Mommy has already spoken to us about. And I, as an employee at the government, I'm not so scared or nervous to show that, okay, this is the side gig I do, with fear that maybe my coworker or my manager has seen it. So for my team, what we tend to do is we tend to have weekly meetings. And before even we get to the main team meeting, we talk about, hey, what have you guys been up to this week? And I'm quite open about sharing what I do. So that's one of the main things that I do, which is kind of disclose to a certain extent what I do with my team. The next thing is, depending on what your side gig is, don't be scared of showcasing it on social media. It's your side gig. You get money from it. Don't be so caught up in, okay, because I work for the government, I don't think I can show this on social media. Obviously, depending on what your side gig is and how comfortable you are, feel free to always display that, and you will actually be surprised as to how many people, even within your team in the government, will support what you do. So that's just the little I wanted to share as well.
Absolutely. Jen or Alex, any other thoughts on the this question on side gigs and projects and how to integrate them onto social media?
The only thing that I would add is, again, go with asking someone from your community, or asking, from the Federal Youth Network or a community. Like, there's people that are happy to help or bounce ideas off. And I would ask a colleague or a manager or a director or someone from the Federal Youth Network. It's always good to just ask.
Absolutely. And just to be clear, we're not necessarily experts on side gigs and conflict of interest policies and all that, but there are lots. I think it's opened up quite a bit over the time I've been in government, where lots of people are involved in lots of different roles. Whether that's as a volunteer, as a sort of part-time position, or consulting, or whatever the case may be. And there are lots of ways to sort of integrate that and ensure that you're following the policies, but able to promote that type of brand. I mean, I think back in the day it might have been Tupperware parties or whatever the case may be, but now it might be more like management consulting or coaching or different things that people are doing as a sort of side role in addition to their government work. So lots of different ways to approach that. Alors, je pense qu'il y a certainement des façons d'utiliser cela et de parler avec votre gestionnaire, de parler dans votre organisation pour voir les politiques par rapport à ces processus, et puis d'être conscient de votre rôle, et puis comment c'est pareil, mais comment vous pouvez intégrer les profils de médias sociaux. So the next question that we have is from our frequent attendee, Lynn, who asked, there are so many options out there. So Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, we talked about TikTok, thinking back decades ago, MySpace and Friendster and all that sort of stuff. But are there any that are better? So I guess fairly general question, but maybe we can think of it through, what you're using it for in terms of like work purposes and brand and that kind of stuff. Are there any that you prefer? So maybe we'll go to each of you and say, you can maybe, sort of tell me your favorite platform to use and why. And maybe Alex, we'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, my favorite, as mentioned, is LinkedIn and Twitter for professional. And the reason is most people that I engage with in my community, professional community, are on those platforms.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Mamie, over to you.
Yeah, so just like Alex said, it depends on what you're using it for. The first thing you have to ask yourself is, what is the purpose of each social media page that I'm using? Because each of it has its purpose. For me, I use Facebook to connect with friends and family. But when it comes to LinkedIn, that's what I use to build my personal brand. I even use LinkedIn for my side gigs as well. So that's what I really use when it comes to my professional aspect. And then for Instagram, it's also a way to just connect with people. And actually, let me add that I think currently one of the best social media apps that you can use is Clubhouse. If you're not on Clubhouse, try as much as possible to get on there. It's, to an extent, one of the most authentic places you can be. You get to connect with people on a personal level that I don't think any other social media page has been able to do that yet. So Clubhouse, I would say, it's quite really, really good.
Awesome. Jen, your favorites.
So my absolute, for work-wise, I do, LinkedIn and Twitter. I do love Twitter, and I love just like seeing people's different ideas. It's where I get all of my most current news. And it's also been a place where I've engaged with a lot of people and that have given me opportunities, I think, such as this one, right? I'm pretty sure that you get to know more people, or people ask you to do things when they find out who you are and what you do. So Twitter is probably one of my favorites. LinkedIn obviously is a professional one that I do use, just not as often, mostly because my side gig is it's very small scale, and I prefer just finding picking my own kind of clients to pay, depending on who that person is. And so I find those people usually either on Twitter or through personal referrals, actually. Personally, I love Instagram. I think it's, a really great way to showcase the things that you're passionate about and who you are. And I've left my profile public so that, people can see, they can go through my Instagram and see kind of like a really good snapshot of who I am. And it includes some work stuff. But usually they're more events that I've done with work, not like my day-to-day work. Yeah.
Absolutely. And in the spirit of being authentic, I'll share that I use Twitter and LinkedIn primarily for work, Facebook to communicate with friends and family, and Instagram and TikTok to promote my cats. So there's my overshare of the day. Alors, Mamie a mentionné aussi que la plateforme Clubhouse est intéressant pour les interactions authentiques avec les autres personnes. Alors, et Marcella a mis l'information dans le chat par rapport à l'utilisation de Clubhouse qui a récemment changé pour être utilisé par les utilisateurs Apple et puis aussi Android. Alors, c'est peut-être une plateforme à explorer. So Clubhouse, definitely an interesting thing to look at and see, if that's something you'd like to start using. So thanks very much for the suggestion. Okay, so our next question. Going on the sort of the other side, the negative side of social media. So the question is, trolls, imposters, fake information, privacy concerns, algorithm bias. There are a lot of cautionary stories about social media. And is it worth it to be on these services? And how do we protect ourselves? Who would like to start with this question? Jen.
That is an awesome question, because it doesn't matter which social media profile or platform you're on, you are inundated with messages. And so some of the ways to protect yourself is, I wouldn't share too much personal information, because there are people out there that use the information you provide on social media to scam your account, to try to figure out passwords. And so I think you have to be really cognizant of, you want to share the things that you really love, and maybe you want to make a really great password that doesn't have anything to do with any of the, your hobbies or your interests, so that can't easily be guessed. Also, I mean, especially with kind of what's been going on now, I've noticed on my Facebook, I've seen a lot of really polarizing opinions. And the thing is, like, where you put your attention is what you'll see more of. And so, like, if somebody were being mean to you on the street, you have a choice, right? You can walk away or you can engage. And the thing is, online, you have those same choices. And so, people are going to have different opinions. People might not always be really kind, but you have 100% control over your actions, who you expose yourself to, and how you respond to things. And so if there are things that don't resonate with you, unfollow, delete, basically mute, silence. I think those are kind of your best friends. And there's a way to privately do it too. If you have that like crazy aunt on Facebook that shares some really intense opinions or videos, you can put her on mute without having her see that you've unfriended her, right? So I think there's a lot of mechanisms in place to counteract those. You just have to be a little proactive.
Absolutely. Alex or Mamie, anything to add on this question?
I would just add that I also have to caution myself against negative, like, confirmation bias, because I tend to follow a community of people and they're maybe similar in thought to me. And so it's important for me to go outside of that to, confirm anything. And also, that's with algorithms on TikTok. I love it. Curates for me. It gives me the videos that I will enjoy, but also, that's something that you have to watch out for. You have to watch out for confirmation bias. So that's all I'd say on the negative side.
I think I'll just add to it, because I always like to have like this personal touch to everything. I actually recently started getting trolled on LinkedIn. Surprise. I got messages where people were like, shut up, nobody cares about whether you just got your master's and so on. And I actually made a post about it on LinkedIn as well. Truthfully, and I'll be 100% honest with you, social media is not for everyone. Don't be pressured to be on social media. If you really feel like you don't want to, you can literally survive without it. And if you feel like, okay, maybe you want to use it to connect with friends and family, you can have your own little private social media page, add the people you want to add, and then move along with it. I know in society we are so pressured to be on everything, to be on Instagram, Twitter, Clubhouse, LinkedIn, blah, blah. It's not for everyone, and that is absolutely fine. So I think, just to answer that question, if you feel quite unsafe, if you don't feel comfortable with being on social media and with all this information being put out, you literally do not need to. And I think you will absolutely be fine, and you will not really miss out on anything. So that's all I wanted to add.
Absolutely. And I think being cognizant of those privacy settings is key. So on Twitter, on LinkedIn, you don't have to have a public account. You can, on LinkedIn, you can only share information with your connections, and then you can control that access more readily if that's something that you're concerned about. In my case, I have a public profile. You can access all the information on my LinkedIn profile, but then I'm selective about sort of what I post on there in terms of, knowing that it is a public profile. Alors, je pense que l'information que vous avez partagée, c'est important. Qu'est-ce que vous changez sur ces plateformes, c'est peut-être d'avoir l'information pour les amis seulement, ou les collègues seulement, et non pour le public en général. Il y a beaucoup de personnes qui dépensent beaucoup de temps pour avoir les commentaires sur chaque post ou l'harcèlement sur les médias sociaux. Alors, c'est important d'avoir le connaissance que c'est possible et de vous protéger. So thanks very much for sharing each of your opinions on this question. Next question, I see we've still got a lot of questions in the Q&A, which is great in terms of the engagement. So the next top question, how do you frame your social media if you are new to the public service and are unsure of your specific future path? So for example, being in the AS category, it's very broad, but close-knit to PM and CR type of positions. But how do you kind of frame that in terms of where you are, but also then sort of where you want to go?
I'll go first, maybe. I think it's really important, and it's a difficult exercise to get to know yourself for some of us, to realize what our skills are, and to know where we want to go. Because here we are in the government. There are so many fantastic opportunities. Like, if you want to go and learn about, something fisheries and oceans, and you have no experience, you have skills that are transferable, and you just have to get to know those skills. It's a really good exercise to go through your skills mapping, to see what your skills are, what your proficiency in those skills are, and to learn what your passions and interests are. Like, if you have a bunch of articles or things on Twitter, what are you interested in? You can start there, and really hone in on things you want to learn about and find out about different kinds of positions in the federal government. And then at that time, you can do your research on people that work there and their profiles. And that's where I would start. I would start with, highlighting a couple of skills and highlighting something that you're passionate about, that you're interested in, to catch someone's attention. And that's okay if you're an AS or an EC or any classification.
Absolutely. Mamie, Jen, any thoughts?
So my career path I started as a CR3, and I've kind of been through the CR, the AS, the IS, and now I'm a PM. And so the greatest piece of advice I can give is, in terms of your social media, is who do you want to be? Like, who is that person you want to be recognized as? And it's, like I said, you're so much more than what your current position title is, right? Alex had said, like, yeah, you have skills and abilities, and maybe you don't have all those yet, but you want to develop those. And so what are you passionate about again? Yes. What are you passionate about? What you want to do? On my Twitter account, I have public relations and communications, which is, although I'm not doing that right now, it's something I'm really passionate about, or something that I really enjoy, or I really enjoy traveling or writing. And none of those, I have an aspect of all of those things kind of in my current duties, but that's who I want to be. And then, when you put those interests out there in the world, people kind of gravitate towards that. Alex had mentioned, there's tons of places within the public service you can volunteer. There's tons of committees you can get involved in. And so even if you're not there yet, just take the leap, because you might get the experience as you kind of go on. I'll tell you a quick story. I was working in it as an AS. I started going back to school to learn communications and public relations. And there was an opportunity to sit on the executive committee of the National Book Federal Communications Council. And even though I wasn't working in that day-to-day, I put my hand up and volunteered, and it really helped connect me with that community. And so when I was fully trained, people knew my name. And so as soon as people know your name, they see your resume in a pool, or somebody mentions your name in a meeting, that's how you kind of get known. And so even if you're not there yet, nobody's ever ready, just who do you want to be? Who do you see yourself being in 5 years? And it's just take the leap and do it.
Absolument. Alors, je pense que vous avez partagé des bons conseils par rapport à la position que tu es dans maintenant. C'est peut-être pas la position que vous voulez dans le futur. Et le type de travail que tu fais, tu peux l'avoir sur vos profils comme LinkedIn et Twitter, de mentionner vos passions, et puis comment ça peut être relié à votre prochaine position. So definitely some good insights in terms of connecting what interests you might not be what you're doing right now, but your future positions can certainly be highlighted. Your future sort of not positions, but your future possibilities are something that you can highlight on your social media profiles for sure. So the next question I think is really a solid one. Sorry, they've all been solid questions, just to be clear. But la prochaine question, c'est par rapport à votre profil LinkedIn. Est-ce que ça devrait être différent de votre résumé? Alors, les personnes ont mentionné qu'ils ont mis toute l'information de leur résumé sur le profil LinkedIn. So the question is, should your LinkedIn profile be any different from your resume? I copy-pasted my bullet points for each work experience to boost my LinkedIn profile. Who would like to start with this question?
I could take a jab at that. So to an extent, your LinkedIn profile will definitely be different from your resume when it comes to obviously the posts you make, extra information that you want to put on your LinkedIn page. What happens is that because normally resumes are only limited to 2 pages, all your experiences in terms of the awards, the volunteer work, the paid work that you have done that ideally you will put on your LinkedIn profile might not be able to fit on your resume. Should be some similarities, especially when it comes to your accomplishments, the STAR method, which is the situation, the task, the action, and the results. So that should be on your resume, in addition to the key, most feasible or most appropriate jobs that you're using to tailor or apply to whatever job you're looking for. However, I see LinkedIn as a page where I put most of that information where you should also bear in mind that whatever you would want to be hired for should be on your resume. And then your LinkedIn page should show sort of the extracurricular activities that can also boost up your resume when, let's say, your employee is going to your employer is going to do some background research on you. You wouldn't want to put something on your LinkedIn profile that is pertinent to you getting hired and then miss that information on your resume. So your LinkedIn should just be sort of like a boost and a cushion to the already germane information that you've put on your resume.
Absolutely. And I think this question speaks a little bit to what should you have on your resume, which will be a different topic that we'll certainly explore over the coming months. How is that pertinent to that next job that you're applying for sure. Okay, so we have just a minute left. I'll see if we can get to a quick final question, and then we'll wrap up. So the question is, I find it difficult to post about my personal life online, and I find that it can be very time-consuming to create content and engage with people. What advice do you have for people who aren't active on social media but feel like they have to be in order to build networks and have an online presence? Alors, la question, c'est par rapport à partager l'information sur l'Internet, et puis les personnes ont des difficultés à partager l'information, à créer le contenu pour leurs médias sociaux. Et est-ce que vous avez des conseils par rapport à cela? So who would like to start with this question?
I'll start. I would go to what Jen had mentioned, which I love, is your GC brand. If you're finding things interesting, if you're like, they work on drones in Transport Canada, which I think is so cool as well. I don't have any skills in drones, but if I read an article on drones because I'm interested in it, there's a good, snippet. It can be very short. I would do it in a Word document or something first to just check your spelling and things. And just a snippet like, hey, read a cool article at drones. So when someone that you're applying to goes to your social media page, they can see that you've posted this article. So it could be things that you're doing every day. You don't have to post every day, but certain things that you're doing during the day, just, that could be an interesting thing to engage a community. Or if you're on social media and you see an interesting article, you could retweet or comment, and that's just the engagement. So it doesn't have to take a lot of effort. Some people plan out their week or plan out their content, which is great. They really want to engage with their community, but if you don't have the time for that or the energy to spend on that right now, then, very simple things and retweeting, commenting, or just posting an article that you found interesting.
Absolutely. Mamie and Jen?
So I'm going to go back to one of the pieces that I talked about earlier. If you have an hour in an evening during the week, Leaders GC has like a chat once a week, and like everybody joins, everybody uses the hashtag, and it's like every week they have a different specialist that comes in, they have a different conversation and topic, and then it's really exciting to like chat back and forth with all of these different people. And that's a really great way to get your name out there in a really short period of time.
I think I'll conclude that and say, I'll confess, I post every single day on LinkedIn. But here's my secret. I'll tell you how I do that. So if you have Canva Pro or you have Hootsuite, there's something called Content Planner. It allows you to create content for the whole month. So what I actually do is I go there and you can actually schedule the date and time in which you want the content to post. So I go on Canva Pro, everyone has Canva, I assume, and then I go to Content Planner, I schedule a post and literally click 6 a.m. post this for me. So I can be in my bed, fast asleep, and it's already posted on LinkedIn, and people are like, oh my God, she's up so early. No, I scheduled it way beforehand. So what you can do, and what has really, really helped me to avoid always sort of being on there physically, is to just schedule posts. And I normally do it like on the weekends, on Saturday, Sunday, when I'm watching TV. I just go on Canva, schedule all the posts I need to post, and it automatically does it for me without me having to even log into LinkedIn to do it myself. So that's like my secret tip that I would like to share.
That's great.
That is a great tip. And I will say that we do not believe that you overpost on social media because we recruited you because we love your social media content. Alors, merci beaucoup à nos trois panélistes, à Jen, à Mami, et puis à Alex pour partager leurs conseils aujourd'hui. So thanks very much to each of you for sharing your advice and your experience in terms of this area and in terms of social media profile writing. I'll mention that the video of this session will be online at 10 a.m. on Friday on our YouTube channel. So you can check out the premiere of that video or share it with your colleagues if they were not able to attend today's session. Our next sessions coming up will be the next 2 Tuesdays as we continue the month of communicating who you are, with the next session on May 18th being on interviews and storytelling with Justin Matthews, Michelle Brazeau, and Tammy Cardoz. So that will be a really interesting session. So if you haven't already registered, please feel free to do so. And the links of that, of course, are on our GC Wiki page. Alors, merci à vous tous pour nous joindre de partout au Canada. C'était une excellente session, une excellente séance. Et puis, la vidéo de cette séance, ça va être sur notre canal YouTube à 10h vendredi pour partager avec vos collègues ou n'importe qui n'a pas vu cette séance aujourd'hui. So thanks very much, everyone, for joining us, and have a great day. Stay safe and take care of yourselves and your family. Thanks very much. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Thank you also for participating.
Thanks.
Thank you.